All right, so what's new with you, man?
What is new? Man,
New haircut.
I got a haircut. Yeah, that's new. Um, yeah, yesterday was the my 15-year
I
leg
saw
anniversary.
that. I saw that,
Yeah.
man. That's awesome.
So that's a big deal. So we had my wife surprised me. We had a couple friends come over and hang in the backyard, and had some sweet treats. That was nice.
Yeah,
And
man. A little
balloons.
bit emotional about it at all?
At this point, I mean, I was emotional, but yes. It just was more like I just felt like and feel really just thankful,
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I mean, with cancer, like I remember my doctor was like, at 2 years have a party, and at 5 years have a big party and get a cake, and then at 10 go crazy, um, and we did all that, and so now at 15, it's amazing.
Welcome to the Positive People Posse Living Room. I'm your host, Dom Green, founder and life enthusiast of Positive People Posse. Today is actually a take two. It was about maybe 2 months ago. We were supposed to sit down with Billy Brimblecom and actually do this living room episode. And for some reason, user error happened and it was all on me, but I'm glad you're able to jump on again. I appreciate it. Actually, this is probably going to even be better because we're even more familiar with one another. So, there's Billy. Thanks again for being on.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to do it. I think I told you when you reached out that our first episode was lost or whatever, that I did a podcast. A friend of mine has a really great podcast called Third Gear Scratch. He's a musician friend of mine, Alan Epley. He's an incredible musician and guy. Third Gear Scratch. It's pretty cool podcast. But I met with him in person, and he lives in Chicago, and it was this whole thing where he had like 3 interviews and then a bunch of all this stuff recorded, and then when it all got lost basically. So it was terrible, and so we had to do it over too as well, and over FaceTime, and I think it was better. It was better.
This has actually happened to me a couple times. So, I need to learn. It's all these learning lessons constantly. The world just shakes you up a little bit, but so be it. Let's roll with the punches, and we are human. We make our mistakes, and
Right.
We are where we are. Just to get started, because the listening audience, they might not be familiar with you. How'd you get your step into Steps of Faith? Tell me a little bit of a brief backstory for people to know who you are.
Yeah. I run a nonprofit called Steps of Faith Foundation. And so to answer your question, how I stepped into that. So long story short, in 2005, I lost my leg to cancer. I had a type of cancer called Ewing's sarcoma, and it was in my left ankle. So that was crazy. I'm a musician at the time, a full-time musician at the time, and worked as a bartender when I was home from tour and things like that. I was 28 years old. And so that was terrible, but obviously it worked out, and I lived to tell the tale, thankfully. And, fortunately had health insurance and got a great prosthetic leg. And so we could talk plenty more about that. But fast forward to, so that was 2005, fast forward to 2013, I was living in Nashville, Tennessee with my wife. We had moved from Kansas City, where I live, to Nashville to pursue more opportunities as a musician, to work as a musician professionally more. And I was at my prosthetic shop talking with my prosthetist, which is a hard word to say, so we just say leg guy. But talking with my prosthetist, my leg guy. And I was about to leave my appointment, and he said, "Hey, I'm about to see a new patient right after you who just lost his leg to cancer. on your way out, you want to come with me into the room and just talk to him for a minute. I think it could be helpful for him to see somebody who's been through what he's going through, but, is years down the road on the other side of it. And I said, man, I would love to do that. I feel like that's part of why this happened to me, and I don't get to have conversations like that very often. So let's do it. And so we walked in the room and I talked to the guy for maybe 5 minutes, and I could just see the kind of hope in his eyes, and he just seemed so excited. And it was great, really short chat. And I left that day just thanking God that I was able to speak that language, so to speak, to him. Anyone can have empathy, especially if you try, with what anybody is going through, right? But we always want to be able to talk to people that can relate specifically to problems that we're having, and that is a problem where it's maybe a little bit harder to find somebody that can relate because they've been through it versus like, oh man, I had a root canal once, or whatever, and so those are also no fun, but losing a leg is worse.
For sure.
Yeah,
you've had both, I'm sure, right?
I've had both.
Okay.
And and so anyway, I just was so thankful that I was able to talk to that guy. And then I went home to my wife. We had a brand new baby at the time, who was just a few weeks old, our first baby. And again, I was working as a musician, but at that point with the new baby, most of my work, some of it was in the recording studio, and that's kind of what I moved to Nashville for, was in hopes to be able to be in the studio more. But most of my work was on the road, which is great, but it's bittersweet because you're away from home and you're away from your family. And I was like, I'm not leaving. It's hard enough to leave my wife. I'm not leaving this new little baby, So I was looking for a job, like another job to do, a new career or something. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I wish that I told her about that experience talking to that guy. I said, I wish that could be my job. Then the next day I had another appointment with my prosthetist, and I told him the same thing. And he said, well, maybe I kind of laughed. Anyway, shortly thereafter, he introduced me to the guy who was his boss, who owned the prosthetic clinic. And that guy's name is Rob Pittman, the owner of the clinic. And Rob and I had a couple conversations. The first one was maybe about working together. And I was like, okay, I didn't really understand how that would work, And so anyway, in the second conversation, he told me that he said, I said, yeah, I don't really, what do you have in mind? I was like, what am I going to do? Like social media for the prosthetic clinic? I just didn't understand. And I don't really think he did either.
Yeah.
But we just liked the idea of us. He felt like we should figure something out. And long story long, basically what happened was, he and I had kind of been talking for about a month at that point. So I had been thinking, okay, I have an opportunity. What is it with this guy? What could I do for him or his company or whatever? And so I told him that, and I said, I can't really figure it out. I said, yeah, I'm a creative guy. I'm a musician. I said, so the idea of working for what is basically a specialty healthcare clinic, even though it specializes in this thing that I need, I said, bums me out. I just don't really see myself in this setting, And he was like, oh, okay. And I said, but when I talked to that day that started this whole series of conversations, I said, the idea of being able to be the bridge to hope and comfort to people in situations like that, to other amputees, I said, I can't think of anything I'd rather do. And then it's like the light bulb went off for him, and he was like, okay, well, I established a 501c3 4 years ago. I just renamed it. It's been sitting dormant. It's hard work trying to make this happen. I'm running the prosthetic clinics. What if I bring you on as executive director and you try to make this Steps of Faith thing fly? And that's how it all got started. And what Steps of Faith does specifically is it's 501c3. It's nonprofit, public charity. We help amputees all across the country that have no health insurance and or health insurance with no prosthetic coverage. So therefore prosthetics, just like anything medical, prosthetics are very expensive. And so if you don't have health insurance, it's almost impossible to come up with $500,000 to $100,000 or whatever it might be to get.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that's the very long version of how it fell from the sky into my lap and changed my life 7.5 years ago, I guess. And what Steps of Faith does.
Something like that. That's all about energy and focus. But like, I think that you were being very true to yourself. Like, it's often, sometimes we just kind of accept, what's like in front of us. And we just say, okay, well, regular job. You've never done anything regular at all. Just being a musician,
right?
Music is very uplifting. So would you say that it's more of like that, your faith is, very energy focused, always searching for something more? Is that what you were feeling at that point in time?
That's a good question. I mean, at that time, I just was really open to, well, okay, a couple things to answer that question. Yes, would be the short answer, but I just had kind of felt for some time, even before our son was born, that there was kind of maybe more, and that's not, and yes, some of that was struggling to make a consistent living in music. And so it's easier to be like, well, this isn't working as well as I would hope or whatever. So, you know what I mean? So it's easy to kind of think that way. But that year before that, in 2012, was actually like a great year. I mean, I wasn't making baller money or anything like that, but I was working consistently as a musician the entire year. And a lot of that meant being away on the road, but fantastic adventures, doing great things. So it was working. Like, what I moved to Nashville to do was happening, which was great. Right. So, but I still had this kind of pull in me where I kind of felt like there was more. I didn't know if it was a totally different career. But I had this thing in me that I was very moved by talking to this guy for 5 minutes, and things like that happened. I felt that way anytime I encountered something like that. So I just was like, I just want to help people. Which is kind of the thing I had in my head, but I wasn't like thinking I should pursue a career where I can help people,
For sure.
Because I always had kind of felt, and not to be holier than thou or whatever, but I always just felt like as a musician, I was helping people, on a good night. Right.
Oh, yeah.
A good night of a concert, hopefully people, it's an escape and people are having fun, or it's emotional or whatever. I mean, that's what music can do for me, or that and the records that we would make, that, that it would be this thing that people would enjoy, and that's helpful. So anyway, again, long answer to a short question, but I just had kind of felt like there was something else to happen. And now, of course, hindsight, it's easy to see, there was this thing that was being prepared for me that, I mean, really fell into my lap. I mean, it was seriously like my second sit down conversation with this person, and really he kind of, I mean, talk about blind faith. I mean, it was really like a hasty decision on his end. I mean, he may have done some more due diligence and kind of like asking Eric, that's my prosthetist, about my character or whatever. Cause I'd been with Eric for 6 months, maybe at that point, as my prosthetist. So all that to say,
you just got the keys. You just got the keys to the wheels. Didn't even know if you were licensed and insured.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The car analogy is good, because I've often said that conversation basically ended with Rob tossing me the keys to a car with no engine in it and said, see if you can get that up and running.
Yeah.
And
not knowing how much it was going to cost or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. Rob and I are still in touch for sure. And he's involved peripherally, but he rolled off of our board of directors by choice a few years ago, and, kids in college and all that. And also it's like, the bird is flying. He's able to release it. Right. But when the day he told me that he was like, I think I'm going to leave the board, and I think everything's, and that's a good thing. I joked to him. I said, I got to say, I think that, would you agree if either of us knew how hard this actually was going to be, we would have never done this. And he
Yeah.
laughed. He was like, absolutely. So again, you know, it just kind of
That's an
worked out.
honest, real statement. And also, congrats, man. 15 years cancer-free. You just celebrated yesterday. That's a big milestone right there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's
15 years. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and my life just, you know, as you know, all of the best things in my life for the most part, you know, barring relationships that I had before that happened that I still have, which is most of the relationships I had before that. Most of the friends I had back then are still my friends, is my point. Barring that, all of the best things in my life have happened since then, you know. You know, it seems kind of crazy to think that something so unthinkable can happen to somebody, and it can bring on so, you know, God can redeem anything. I mean, that's the moral of the story, you know, and something so terrible happened to me, and no one would want to have their leg amputated or anything amputated for that matter, you know. And I mean, that was the nightmare. I was never even thinking about dying when I had cancer, even though that was a very distinct possibility. You know, that's why I got my butt kicked for a year and 13 rounds of chemo, and ultimately had a limb removed, you know, was so that I would survive. But the thing I was most scared of was losing my leg. And, you know, I met my wife about a month after that. You know, I was bone thin, no hair anywhere, one leg, you know, not hot on the singles market back then in 2005. Yeah. But it worked out, you know, and it looked like I would maybe not be able to have children because of the chemo. And that proved to not be the case. And you know, and Steps of Faith is something I would have never even known. I would have known nothing about amputees or prosthetics had it not been for losing my leg. So you know, it's pretty, I can look back. I wouldn't change it at this point.
Yeah, that's what I kind of always think about. Like, you know, if I hadn't been doing this, who would have been the people that I hadn't met? You know, I would have never met certain people in my life, or maybe enhance other people's lives and stuff. So I do believe that it's like, that's even more powerful to even think about that. Think about all the people that you've been able to help, you know, just as through friendship or whatever it could be. You've met people in the process because of what you do now with Steps of Faith.
Right. Yeah, it's yeah, it's a real blessing, man, you know. And yeah, and I mean, yeah, just the relationships I've formed through the job, and that's, you know, all business is relationships. And I used to always say that in the music business, that's even more important, you know. And furthermore, old kind of adage about not mixing business with pleasure, and don't do business with your friends and all that. It's like, that's antiquated thinking. That's over. You know what I mean?
100%.
Maybe in some forms of business, you know, but it's definitely not the way I have ever thought. And that is, and just naturally, you know, I mean, I went to college for 1 year barely, and it was study jazz drum set. Right. But what I was doing throughout high school, throughout my college years, even though I only attended for 1 year, you know, really everything I had done up to the point of getting the Steps of Faith job, and even now, and it's only in the last few years I've realized that, like what I said, that business is relationships. I kind of do the same thing in this job that I did as a musician, which is really just like build relationships and do cool stuff together. I mean, that's it. And even to the point of, again, I don't have a degree, so I don't have a nonprofit management degree. I don't have a business degree, anything like that. But I have been in business my whole life. It's just not these traditional routes of business. I'm not dying. I do not have COVID-19.
I would opportune time right now to, you know, tell people to wear your mask and wash your hands.
Yeah. Let's have like What it is it's peanut butter related. What I was trying to say is that what I do in my job is just build relationships, and fortunately, I realize that that's something that is a thing, and it's a thing that not everyone is good at, and that I never thought it was a thing because it's what I've always done coming up in the performing arts. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a football player. I was like I'm a drummer. So it's like, I can't go play a gig in a coffee shop by myself as a drummer. I mean, I could, but no one would really want to hear that.
Yeah.
Unlike a singer, songwriter, guitar player, right? So I have always had to be a collaborator. I've always had to connect with a guitar player or whatever, or a musician that plays a chordal instrument in order to make, music and not just beats, right? And so that's all I do in this job. So much to the point, I'm really taking the long road to this point.
No, it's okay.
What Steps of Faith does is fundraisers is the things that come naturally to me, which is typically concerts, no disrespect to people that do golf tournaments, galas, and 5Ks, all of the ways people traditionally raise money for charities. But I don't know how to do those things, But what I do know how to do, put on a concert or an improv comedy show. That's another chapter of life, And so, a buddy of mine that I came up doing improv comedy with right out of high school in Kansas City has gone on to have the dream come true, and it's a guy named Jason Sudeikis, who's from Kansas City, who's live and is in all sorts of amazing movies and comedic things. And he and I came together 3.5 years ago to do, we created a fundraiser that we do in Kansas City every November called Thunder Gong, which is a made up word that means nothing. And it's a fundraising concert, but it's also kind of a comedy show, kind of a variety show. And we can talk more about that if you want. But the point being, it's the things that I grew up doing naturally, for fun, and then also became my job. And so then in this new job, that's the way we go about raising money, because it's the things that come naturally to me.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
I love that. One thing that I've recently came across was the show called Cripple Camp. You cannot say that word these days without offending someone who's a paraplegic, but have you seen it?
Unfortunately, no. I have a lot of amputee friends that have posted about it and have told me about it. I know it's on Netflix, and I have no excuse as to why I haven't watched it yet.
It's okay.
I kind of feel like there are certain things that I know I need to see, and that's one of them, where I kind of feel like I need to be in the right emotional space.
For sure, 100%.
It's gonna rattle me, right?
No, 100%. And I got extremely emotional about it. And I would say that when it comes down to it, like what you're able to do and overcome and accomplish is awesome. A lot of people can't. And there's been, when I watched the show, it really just gave me like a big understanding that, there are people out there that face challenges that are harder than others. And, I think it gave me a better perspective and appreciation for, knowing that you have to overcome a lot of things mentally. It's not just the physical part, it's the mental part. And people have been disadvantaged. And, I see the inclusivity aspect of it being very important, that we constantly make strides towards inclusivity and understanding that it's not about feeling bad for someone. I think it's about being empathetic, and I really appreciate your energy and focus of more about helping other people's lives. It's really not just about your life at all. You've got, you've really, I would feel that you probably don't know anything different now, 15 years later, right? And it's like, you're not like saying, feel sorry for me or whatever. You've just made this all about your life. You're here to help and enhance others. And so I think that you've got it easier in a sense that you're like on the uplifting side, you know?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying all that. Yeah, I think I think a few things that I thought saying that, and I lost two of them just now. But yeah, no, I think a couple things. First of all, as far as in the time now that we're in, just like I said, good things can come out of something terrible happening. There's a lot of things happening terrible in America right now and in the world. I think that's an understatement. But there are positive reactions slowly happening as a result of it. So, I try to maintain a disposition of hope. Okay, it's coming back to me now. So a couple things there. When it comes to equality and inclusivity and all of that thing, all that kind of stuff, which is beautiful and long overdue, the last group of people to be considered are people that are disabled. That's not my opinion. Think about it. It's a fact.
Yeah, I agree.
We're getting louder. The fact that we have to discuss equality when it comes to race is so ridiculous in 2020. And the fact that there's so much kind of regression that's happened over the last few years it infuriates me. I don't speak about politics online on social media just because a lot of reasons. I don't need to. There's plenty of loud voices. I don't need to scream into the void. And, as a nonprofit guy, I don't need to write. I mean, I have very strong political views personally, but I will talk about racism because that's we talked about this a little bit last time.
Yeah, we did.
That was all very fresh. The Floyd stuff was happening, but my point is that's not political. That's human. That's
100%.
human stuff. So thank God these voices are being heard, but it's unfortunate that they have to be heard. So my point is that the last group of people, it was the Oscars or some show where they were talking about in the opening a couple years ago, in the opening kind of monologue, dance sequence, that whole kind of thing. I think the point was about how there was either very few black filmmakers, I think was the gist of the whole kind of satire, basically, joke they were trying to make. And so then I remember at the end of it, and they were like, and here is one of everybody else, and it was like, a dancer of every color and gender and all of those kinds of things. And it was really funny and kind of uplifting, but then when it was over, an amputee friend of mine pointed out online, it was like, yeah, one of everybody except a disabled person.
Yeah.
So that's really important. So that's a fight, but it's getting better. You're seeing more amputees and people in wheelchairs and people with physical disabilities and people with mental disabilities and that kind of thing in modeling campaigns for clothing and on TV and that kind of thing. So progress is being made very slowly, but surely it is happening. And the other thing I was going to say, I didn't grow up an athlete. If the Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary, Chicago Bulls documentary has taught us anything, it's like, it's the mental game, right? It's the mental game, this to make that guy work so hard, you know what I mean? And so for me, you can't always control what happens to you physically, but you can at least do your best to control what goes in your mind and what comes out of your
100%.
mouth. So that's
and going back to that, when I watched this Crip Camp documentary on Netflix, what I also saw was so many similarities when it came to the racial discussions and what people are fighting for now, to this day, and so many limitations on areas that can be advanced, like technology. There's so many things that we need for the entirety the U.S. citizens to be able to have today. But when you have blind eyes to the fact that we need to recognize that we need to make facilities more accessible. And so I think it's very important for us to, diversify our audience or who we talk to and, who we interact with, because inclusion is a big thing, but, I think a lot of times we're just kind of jaded and we're blind to things, and we just think that, the reality of it is it's not my world, so it's not my problem. Well, this is America right now. Racism does exist. Inequality does exist for all types. And, we just have to have conversations with it. And, yes. maybe that betters individuals because now they're more sensitive and they can go about change of some sort. Change is very minor. It's one thing at a time, one step at a time.
It really is. And I think, I love everything you just said. Yeah. And if in that bit on the Oscars or whatever it was, and if they were really representing disability, it would have been a stage full of people. But the fact that they had no one that was just shows like, okay, it's just this kind of overlooked thing. But that's really, the name of the game for life, I think is just continue, it's maintaining maintenance and just trying to continue learn more and just be a better listener and have empathy for people. Even your enemies, so to speak. I don't feel that I have enemies, literally enemies, but you know what I mean? You have conflict to some extent in your life with people is inevitable. Hopefully that conflict isn't, a gunfight, right?
Yeah.
It's just an argument or whatever. But and the racism thing, what's kind of been in my head lately is, and I'll preface this by saying, I stopped drinking about 4 years, not quite 4.5 years ago. Was a drinker from a young age, and full disclosure, I stopped drinking because I'm an alcoholic, and that can look a lot of different ways. As my wife has said, she didn't even really know, I wasn't like falling down. I wasn't, violent, I wasn't, it wasn't things like that, but alcohol had a hold on me, and it was a really personal thing. And I don't talk about it a ton, but I stopped drinking. So, and that's, one of the best decisions I've ever made. My point is, there's a pretty broad spectrum to alcoholism. So I've had a Facebook post in my mind that I've yet to write and probably won't. I'll just save it for you right here, which is basically this thought of, and, which the thought is basically that racism is a lot like alcoholism, in that it has a very broad spectrum to it, and a lot of people don't even realize they're on it, or they refuse to admit it. And so I think that if I was still drinking and I read that, I would feel challenged. I would feel offended.
Yes.
Which is why I want to post it.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't even realize, they might know in the back of their heads that drinking is a problem, and when I've posted about, and so meaning it would be challenging to them for a couple different reasons.
No, I totally feel that. It's like, do I have a problem? I don't have a problem. I'm offended.
Right. Right. With either one of them is my point.
Yes.
Alcoholism or racism. I think it's hard to not have, getting off the alcohol tip. I think that more people than not have had, through the crazy way this country has been built and the way things have played out when it comes to people being different colors, unfortunately.
You know what?
hard to not have had racist thoughts to some extent at some point in your life, even if it's conscious, you know. I mean, I certainly have, you know, especially.
That's all we want. Speaking on behalf of my entire race, I can't do that, you know. I'm just one individual.
Sure.
I think that's what we're after. I think that's what we're all after, is just really understanding, acknowledging that, like, hey, we are imperfect. Can we just all agree that we're not perfect, right? I think that would be, like, that's a first start, right? It's like, I don't have all the answers. I couldn't tell you how to end a lot of our systemic racism, but I can acknowledge that I'm not perfect. And I've said insensitive things in the past, being young and dumb. Right. And I will make more mistakes in the future, even though my brand is Positive People Posse. But I am human, and I do acknowledge that there's a lot that we can do better, all of us. And so I think it's just the fact when people just don't admit and they feel like they're flawless and everything's fine because they're not affected by something. Until you get affected by something, that really is the reality shake. But, you know, let's be more preventative maintenance rather than, you know, reactive maintenance.
Healthcare versus sick care.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is, man. I mean, no, you're exactly right. Like, if you are a human being that is alive, you are making mistakes every day. Yes. So if we can just understand that and let ourselves off the hook and be honest about it, and it's really about, like, being honest and taking responsibility and being accountable, and then just trying to listen. And so therefore having people, you know, the back to the whole building relationships thing, you know, you have got to have people in your life that can speak into your life and have good friends that are going to give you good advice, especially as you get older. You know, as you get older, we live on our own, whatever. We're not in school with our groups of friends every day or whatever, you know, but it doesn't, just as, like, you know, we're talking how our kids, we're going to homeschool, you know, next year. We've officially decided, you know, because of all the craziness of school, you know, and, like, you worry about the socialization and that kind of thing, because that's important when kids are young. It's also important for the rest of your life to at least be able to have, in different ways, you at least need to have a small number of close friends that can speak into your life for your whole life. Otherwise, you know, we're not meant to live life alone. That doesn't mean everyone is meant to get married or whatever, or have a partner. I'm just saying we're not meant to live life alone where there's not people in our lives that will be honest with us, because otherwise we get out of step and we get weird. And, you know, I've seen it happen many times.
Bad, you know? Weird, and bad, so, weird. We got a book on We're All Weird, so.
Bad.
Bad.
Yes, no, not good weird like your book. Yeah. And so, but do you know what I mean? It's
no,
like we
100%.
have to have honest conversations, because otherwise you just lose perspective and you lose the plot, and it can become all about you, and it's never all about you, you know? And yeah, I mean, we're here to serve, you know what I mean? Yeah. Each other. And, you know, we all have stuff that we're going through. I mean, you talked about that earlier, you know, and so, you know, I it's interesting what you said about me having an advantage, you know, and again, it's just a perspective thing, but I lose it all the time. That's the whole thing. But I admit that I lose it all the time, and I'm not humble bragging. Mm-hmm. You know, I am a broken human who makes mistakes every day, but I'm not alone, and I'm trying every day to be honest, to serve God better, to serve my family better, to serve my, you know, my job and my friends, and just listen, you know? I mean, that's all we want from people, you know? Yeah. And yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
No, I totally get it. And going back to the friends thing, it is really important to understand your circle and who your circle is, because I have friends who tell me, this is how you up. excuse my language, but they tell me this is how you can be better, you know, as a human. They have in the past. And every step of the way, I just recognize that I am a human being, and I will continue, again, making mistakes, but now I'm more aware. If anything, it creates more, my mistakes have created more awareness. And that's all we need, is for people to acknowledge that they just don't have all the answers. And we can also create more synergy by working with different people, you know, that are not like you at all. And that's what I really do appreciate for school for the most part. I can't speak for all schools. They do try to, there is integration there. And collaboration can happen, but how do we make that collaboration even better? How do we enhance that? And I really do believe it's, you know, it comes down to music, it comes to conversation. Music's always bringing people together to some aspect. Sports, always. You know, no matter how we think, you know, a lot of us get centered around the TV and they watch their favorite football team or the basketball team, and you can see all people there. And so don't be racist, because one particular race could walk off the football field and there not be any more football left. and so let's just think about all the things, like every aspect that someone brings something to the table. It's like, you know, whether if it be like the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, I think it actually brought more equality, you know, seeing all races being represented. There's a lot of equality right there. There's a lot of synergy that's happening right there between races coming together. And if we, like you said, if, you know, if we're here to serve, we're here to help other people. And that really comes to understanding people's stories. Like, and so I feel like if we can learn from the Americans with Disabilities Act, if anything, of like what we need to do, you know, it's, you take away, if you only had one race, there would still be a problem. There'd be classism of some kind. So, you know, we're going to be talking about these issues for years to come, but, you know, the best advantage, but we still want to raise our kids. I don't have any kids yet, maybe one day, but we still want to raise our kids in this utopia mindset of like, hey, we want our kids to have the best advantages. We also want them to be solid humans.
Right. Dude. Yes. Yeah. No, I love all that. Yeah. I mean, and that is the thing. Yeah. Disability knows no, I've said this a lot about alcoholism before, but it keep coming back to that. But disability knows no race or gender or you know, class or anything like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, and a lot of times, especially if it's like something like what happened to me, you know, or you know, just when it comes to losing a limb. I mean, no one plans for that or expects that, and you know, so that's a great point about that.
Awesome. So tell me about
that's a great point about the ADA bringing people together. And then the other thing I would say is, if you don't have a handicap pass, don't park in a handicap parking spot. Just a minute, because that minute is the minute that somebody who is in a wheelchair is looking for a parking spot. Don't park there.
Yeah, and you know,
lazy ass, walk your lazy ass through the parking lot like everybody else, jerk.
And don't assume that you have a black card to drop the N-bomb ever. Like it's I was just trying to relate.
Hey,
but
yeah, you can't do that.
You just can't do that. Nope. So let's talk about Thunder Gong. Let's talk about some of the things that you guys are doing as of late. Obviously, a lot of stuff has shifted, and you can't interact with people the same way. Or maybe you can. Yeah. I know Kansas City's operating completely different. I'm in New York now, so I know it's a little bit of different matters here, but I would like to know if there's, you know, any plans moving forward for fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, we're always trying to, you know, the nonprofit world is interesting because it's very much a business, and you actually have to jump through way more hoops and deal with way more crap than a for-profit business in a lot of ways. Lots of antiquated thinking when it comes to how nonprofits work. Like, for instance, the people that work for them should be disadvantaged in the way that the people that you're serving are, and you shouldn't be paid, or things like that. Not everybody feels that way, and that's kind of moving on, thankfully. But that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So so my point is,
and go pause real quick, and just for people to understand how a nonprofit works. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners and people that would know, but it's not the fact that you shouldn't get paid. It's just about how you disclose it, right? And you guys are, is it really about like what you disclose?
Yeah, well, it's more about like, if you go to, what was that really great place in Bear Burger? Is that a place? Is that what I'm saying in New York?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. There's this
Sounds
place
great though.
that I love, Bear Burger. I wonder if that's still there. Anyway, if you go to your favorite burger place, okay, and you give them your money, they're going to give you the delicious food you desire, right? And then they use that money to, right? So when you go to a nonprofit, let's say Steps of Faith as a for instance, and you give us your money, we use your money to buy prosthetic legs and arms to restore mobility to other people. And then you get a tax credit for that, and jewels in your crown in heaven, and you should feel great, right? So it is a business just like the burger place, right? Only it's not like this person gives their money to that business and then this person gets the thing. You're helping other people. That's it. And it's a different tax denomination. Otherwise, it is a business like anything else. Okay. So we are a small organization. We just now, as of this year, have 3 full-time employees, and that's 7 years in. It started with me when Rob, blessed me with this opportunity, like I talked about. So my point is, and we definitely, and unlike a for-profit company, you probably can't go online and find out what the CEO of Bear Burger, which I don't even know if it's still a business, but we're going to keep going with the example. Go with it.
I'm getting hungry.
But you probably can't go online and find out what that guy makes, what his salary is. You can go online and find mine, and that's fine with me. You know what I mean? Because that's how it
Transparency.
works. It's transparency, and some people have taken advantage of the situation, which
Yes.
is why these kinds of things exist. We had a donor reach out to us recently, somebody I didn't know. He had tried to call Annie and emailed, and he was asking about, like, what's the percentage of how the money works and that kind of thing. And first of all, the way he asked it just kind of showed the antiquated way of thinking and his ignorance.
Yes.
And so if you go to this link on guidestar.org, that's a website that exists, that they get their information from the IRS and information that we give them, that exists to answer questions like that, And so I just had to assume he didn't know about that. And so you can go on there and see what we spent money on, and that kind of thing. But there's also anecdotal things. It doesn't say, here's how many people we helped. You can see what I make for a living, what I'm paid and all that kind of thing. But it doesn't show you, I don't think, at least it's not on the nonprofit tax return as a different kind of form, because you don't pay income tax, right? Excuse me. But that's the whole thing. It's like, it's all about leveraging relationships. With Steps of Faith, the money we make, there's no Steps of Faith without people to run it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a trust fund kid. Most people are not. So it's like, we should be paid just like the people that work at Bear Burger, right? To help people. So is this making sense?
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so what we do is we're always trying to leverage the donor's dollar to take it further. I don't decide my salary. I never have. You know what I mean? I have a board of directors. So even though I'm the executive director, and I'm essentially, the boss of the company, right? I have, at this point, we have a 14-member board currently, and so those are the people who make those decisions on not how we spend the money within the company, but on what I'm paid. You know what I mean? I have say in what my employees make, but ultimately it is not a decision in which I can vote on, So anyway, but what we do is we're leveraging the relationships we have to take the donor's dollar further so that we can help as many people as we possibly can, but also help them well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like everyone gets the same thing. I always say there's lots of different prosthetic options because there's lots of different body options, And so, what I wear is a $60,000 prosthesis. That's ridiculous that it's
That's a
that much
car.
money.
Yeah, that's a really nice car.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that it's that amount of money. But if they made as many of these robot legs as they did iPhones, because there were that many people that would want to buy them, they would be considerably cheaper. But that's not how it works. And the medical world is weird. And that's the world we live in here in America.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, I have health insurance these days that takes care of that. Steps of Faith can, what we do also, just to get into that a little bit, is, so I always say we're the middleman. We're the middleman between the donor who's giving us their money. That the donors are the heroes of the story. And then what we do is then connect the patients that need our help, that have no health insurance, that just need to get back to work or whatever that was they were doing. We connect them with a prosthetist, and then they put the patient back together. So the heroes are the donors and the prosthetists, and the winners of the whole thing are the patients. Just helping facilitate the whole thing. And those prosthetists, the leg guys or the arm guys, they're donating their time. Okay. They're donating their time, doing it for free. And then we pay for the stuff. We pay for the parts. We send them to them and they put them together. And furthermore, we pay for those parts at a rate that we have negotiated through relationships, again, leveraging relationships, so that we're able to spend as little money as possible to get the best stuff possible to help people. Then with the hope that it is an investment in which they will then be able to get on some sort of state funding or some sort of insurance plan. And then they become a paying patient to the prosthetist that donated their time. So it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
But that is always the goal, right? Everybody has a different story. Some people are older, some people are already retired, or whatever the case may be. But anyway, just to kind of zoom in on how a nonprofit works, how people are paid, how you report that kind of stuff, and then also kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works specifically with Steps of Faith. Some people may have fallen asleep over the last 10 minutes as I've been discussing that. Wake up, we're back.
I'm still here.
Talk
I'm
about
still here.
Thundergong. No. Oh, good. So yeah, dude. So we've been trying to raise money however we can. I mean, fortunately, like I said, we normally, our biggest fundraiser every year by far. I mean, Thundergong. We just started it in 2017, and that changed everything for us. We had a budget of $150,000 that year. You can go online and see that.
Wow.
We had a budget of $150,000. So that was to pay me, to pay one part-time employee. We had a free office. We pay an accountant and a bookkeeper because essentially we exist to facilitate this service and then pay for it. He does the paying of the bills, right?
Yeah.
To help that year was 52 people, right?
Wow.
In a week. So we almost ran out of money a couple times, like we had every other time that year. Sudeikis and Kay Cannon from our board of directors and some other people came in with some very generous gifts that basically pulled us out of the depths of almost running out of money. And then Sudeikis and I came together and did Thundergong, and then that raised $150,000. So we hit the goal, and then we basically doubled our goal. So it was like winning the lottery, the dream coming true, all that. And we've done it 2 years since then. It's raised about $300,000 the last 2 years. So that's a lot of fun. It's a blast. Right now, he and I are playing phone tag to figure out if we can make a virtual Thundergong happen. I think that if Jason has time and we can get the right, names involved, and it lives on the right piece of real estate, i.e., it lives online in a place that's easy for people to access
Yeah.
and people know about it, we can have a much broader reach than putting on this really fun concert variety show in Kansas City to 2,000 plus people, right? And raising hopefully $300,000 or more. I mean, at that point, we could reach the world, right? It's
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
So that's our hope and prayer. We'll see. Again, it's a weird year, and it's been strange. We've had, I estimated over $100,000, not counting Thundergong, in of what we would have hoped to have bring in from live fundraisers that we would normally do, not be able to happen because of the virus this year. So, but there's also money that we had not planned for from, some very generous people that has come in. So we're alive, we're surviving. Our board treasurer is, one of the top executives of one of the largest companies in the prosthetic world. I'll just put it at that. And he just said, I remember he said at a board meeting we had a couple months ago, he said, surviving this business, surviving this year is victory.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm trying to shoot above that. So we are going to survive this year. And for us, the catch is, bringing in enough money before the end of the year that so we'll still survive through quarter 1 of next year when no one gives money to nonprofits, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
I have seen some interesting statistics with nonprofits. I believe what came across was the estimate of nonprofits will be drastically reduced by somewhere in upwards of 30 to 40% in the next 3 to 5 years. And so every bit of fundraising, it's really important, And so, yeah, it can be a scary thing. And don't quote me on that. I do remember reading it somewhere. I'll have to find that statistic. But, it's very important that we're of service to people that are of service. Like, I truly believe in giving back. Because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that I'm helping make impact of some kind. Not for me to just praise and say, hey, look what I did. But
yeah,
at the same time, that does feel good too. So whatever gets you going with giving, just when you give back, give back to people that are actually making some change that you can see. And
yeah.
What I can see with Steps of Faith is there's actually an equation here. If you raise X amount of dollars, this helps X amount of people. So, I think that's really important to think about, so, just think about when you are, giving, who it's helping. So that's huge.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that. And you're right. And, no disrespect to nonprofits that exist to say, raise awareness about things or fund research. I mean, all of those things are incredibly important. I do believe there are some things that I'm surprised the IRS granted them 501c3 status.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of it. There is no
this private jet,
right? There's no shortage of incredible causes. But when you talk about the equation, yeah, it's a really easy to see equation. Again, you give us your donation, you not only get a tax credit, which is nice, but you see your dollars in action with every step a person takes that we've helped. Every new limb we're able to give somebody. And just to put my personal feelings as someone who's lost a limb into that, and not as like the guy who runs the company or whatever. It's more than just a physical thing. It's not like you put on a pair of comfortable shoes after you've been wearing high heels and then you're like, oh, well, that's better. Now I can more easily walk across the room. And it's like, well, there's that. It's like, no, you couldn't walk across the room at all before.
Yeah, this is life-changing.
It's life-changing. And it's not only, a physical thing. It's mind, body, spirit, all emotions, all of that. And it's not only a thing that affects you, it's the community of people around you. And I'm talking your family, I'm talking your friends, I'm talking your job, the marketplace, the economy. I mean, it's like what we do from a cause standpoint can feel like niche, I know, to a lot of the world versus poverty or cancer or things like that, right? But it's no less important, to that maybe smaller population of people. But there's over 2 million Americans, just Americans. I'm not talking about other parts of the world, that have lost a limb. And it's 500 people a day. 500 people a day in this country lose a limb. So it's more people than you think. And when we talk about parking in the handicap spots and the ADA and things like that, I'm able to, for the most part, live my life physically and do all of the things I did before, for the most part, and that is because I have health insurance, and therefore I have access to the right tool. Have access to the $60,000 prosthesis, which is the right tool for my body as a 43-year-old active man, right?
Yeah.
What Steps of Faith does, what people do with their dollars when they give us donations, is we give access to people who can't, we give the tools to those people who don't have access to them. I don't feel like a handicap. I don't think like a handicapped person very often, because I don't feel like a handicapped person very often, because I have access to the right tools. So, yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. I think that gives me a lot more perspective on just like nonprofits in general, but I truly believe that, people constantly need a little bit more education, understanding how many nonprofits are different too. And, your cause, it's not just like, oh, it's a nonprofit, like, I'm not the one who pokes holes at every nonprofit, but that's still at the same time, when I know how the dollars are being utilized and knowing that it can change lives, that fact of 500 people a day losing a limb, that's astonishing to me. And so where do you see you guys, like in the perfect world, in utopia, how do you feel, where do you want Steps of Faith to go in the next like 5 years? Like, would it be helping other people in different countries, or?
Sure. Yeah. I still feel like we got a lot of work to do, not just Steps of Faith, but we as Americans helping amputees in need in this country. But yeah, definitely, and actually, there's what was the stat? Over 5 million Americans have lost health insurance since February.
Yeah.
So that means people who never thought they need help, that are going to need our help, and we've already started to see an uptick in that. So to answer your question, the last 3 years have been really incredible growth for us, and I'm really thankful for that. This is obviously, like I said, a weird year for everybody. But when I talked about how the money works, so really, therefore, there's kind of two sides to the business. There's the side of the business, which is the what we do, part of what we do, right? Getting, helping amputees, helping amputees that are uninsured get new limbs, and the process of that. And then there's also a whole other side of the business, which is raising money. And so the raising money part of the business has been, like I said, really hard. But the mission part, what we do, has, it only slowed down a little bit. And that's just because prosthetists were being furloughed, because no one was going anywhere because they were afraid to leave their house, right? And so, our last year we had a goal to, let's see, 2017, I said we were going to help 52 people. We helped 56, and our world changed for the better. 2018, the goal was to help 70 people. We helped 76. Last year, the goal was to help 100 people. In 2019, we helped 133. So this year, the goal, which I'm proud to say we are still on track to hit, as of today, the goal is to help 150 people. And we're on track to hit it and hopefully beat it as well. So to answer your question, in 5 years, I don't know exactly, but I would like to keep growing at the same rate, if not even faster. Part of the growth last year and being able to help so many more people and so many more people than the goal, 33 more people than the goal, when just 2 years earlier, the goal was only 52, is because we were able to hire a third employee, and that's because we're funded well enough to do it, and again, go online, see what that person, see the amount of money that we are paying that person. So I just, the company to keep growing, the no matter what, then people unfortunately are going to keep losing limbs. And since we don't live in utopia, and since our healthcare industry in this country, which of course, by the way, is a misnomer, it's not healthcare, it's health insurance, because health insurance companies don't care about you.
Thank you.
They don't care about you, and they don't care about your doctor.
Yep.
Actions speak louder than words. They're going to say with their words something differently, but look at their actions. Seriously, ask doctors how health
seriously,
companies screw them over, right?
Yeah.
Just
all insurance in general, shouldn't be like that. You're paying into a system. You should be.
Of course. So my point is, unfortunately, health insurance is a messed up scenario here in this country. So the need for what we do is not going away. So really, I just want the organization, what Steps of Faith, to continue to grow and thrive. And frankly, what I'm trying to do is build the organization to where it can continue to grow and thrive long after the people who originally built it have left. People will keep losing limbs forever, unfortunately. So I want Steps of Faith to last forever in a utopia. To answer your question about utopia, I want it to continue to grow and help people forever, long after I'm dead and gone.
I'm sure there's people and opportunities that you would like to empower people to have as well. Like that's the goal for Positive People Posse constantly, is how can we empower other people to be creative, and what other people other than salespeople for digital marketing that we can have living this world. So you want to give people shots and opportunities, another outlook on life too. So yeah, man. Also, right now, Thunder Gong is still in the works. You guys are still trying to figure out some kinks and different things. I would love to help you at any capacity as far as marketing goes, whether if it be like the technical aspect of trying to figure out how to stream. I've got a team of production people. Any way that we can donate our time to help figure out, would love to assist you guys on. And maybe even also figure out a way that we can help you guys out with through our children's book. We've got affiliate marketing with our children's book that we allow organizations to basically reap 10% back to whatever, just by promoting the book. It helps us out because we really want to get this message about inclusivity out. I think that's really big for us. But love to figure out any way that we can collaborate with you guys. I'm all about who you are as a person. I think that's what it comes down to, is the relationship level first. Because I would not care about your organization if I didn't feel like you were a good person, or or you had good intent. If that makes any sense. So any way that we can, love to help.
Man, I love that. I really appreciate you saying all that, and man, I love talking to you, and I'm so glad you reached out to me.
Appreciate that.
We connect, and we'll we have our fingers crossed about doing some version of Thunder Gong or something along those lines. Hopefully in the fall. The original, Thunder Gong is always in the first week or two, usually the second weekend of November. So that date is still held at the Uptown Theater in Kansas City. We will not be putting 2,600 people in the Uptown Theater.
Yeah.
But we may be using it, hopefully, with a film crew to film, to be, broadcasting, so to speak, some stuff from there live. But again, it's all up in the air. So much of it is just Jason and I getting on the same page. But we are, that is happening very soon, and we have high hope. We just kind of keep the fires burning, and that the entertainer in me just hopes that we can kind of just bring this really fun, unique thing, which I know Thundergong is for Kansas City, to the virtual airwaves and the internet and that kind of thing. And it can just be this fun thing for people, but that can also raise a ton of money to help that need it.
I'm definitely picturing some pre-recorded segments and things that I've seen on the actual SNL as of late. I think there's a lot of cool production things you guys can do, but it's just rolling with the punches, man. We're all getting knocked down.
Yeah, it's got to get up,
Yeah, man. I appreciate your time, and thank you again for being on here. It's the Positive People Posse Living Room, and stay tuned to next time.